Yeah, good morning, Aunt Wyatt. We've got some of that cold rain here as well, sitting right at freezing, 32 degrees right now in Hickory. And things have been wet all morning. That rain coming down with some good clips where we've had some ponding over near the grass, some puddles there. And we've got some really nice patio furniture out here in the pavilion in Hickory. So I've been really using it as a nice judge to see if we're getting any of that ice to accumulate on those elevated surfaces here. And every time I swipe my finger, it's water, right? So we're not really seeing things freeze over here yet. And it really just goes to show here, guys, we're sitting at 32 degrees, right? Kind of your magic number, right? It literally 1-2 degrees makes such a difference in storms like this. If we were just 2 degrees colder, this chair could be all icier with the way this water is kind of sitting on it. You could be looking at much icier conditions there. So again, just small temperature differences going to make a big difference with this system. Right now, things are all pretty wet here. Haven't really seen too much icing yet, but it's still possible as we go through the morning hours. Temperatures continue to cool down. We could see some of this ice develop. Things that we keep mentioning, bridges, overpasses, those things have the cold air wrap around it first. So anything that's got like ground earth underneath it is a little bit warmer because temperatures were warmer in the afternoon yesterday. But those bridges and overpasses, they don't really have anything to warm it up. There's nothing to give it that boost. So that cold air wraps around it, so you can very easily go from these wet roads to a slick road very quickly if you're going over an overpass or a bridge. So just keep that in mind. Also, of course, it's tough to tell if things are wet or icy. Just be careful out there this morning. Of course, we're going to continue to track these conditions here for you in Hickory throughout Good Day Charlotte. For now, reporting live in Hickory, meteorologist Elisa Raffa, FOX46. Yeah, good morning, Jason. We are still dealing with a mostly cold rain here. I keep checking these little cute chairs that we've got behind us here to see if we're getting any ice to get on these elevated surfaces, and not yet. And we're sitting right at 32 degrees in Hickory. Let me show you radar with some temperatures over it. And this is what I was talking about earlier, is this 1 to 2 degree temperature difference really means all the difference in the world when it comes to precipitation type. Sitting at 32 degrees in Hickory, Lincoln, and in Statesville. And you see those pinks on radar. So it's showing that it could be freezing, right? That freezing rain and sleet. Right now in Hickory, we're not really seeing too much of that ground truth there. And then just 2 degrees warmer in Charlotte, that's where you've got all of that rain. Now, looking at the road weather conditions, things, of course, are wet around Charlotte, areas to the south and east. I don't want to ignore the blue. That's where you had some of those stronger thunderstorms at some of that heavier rain, some ponding there. The pinks up top, kind of where we are in Hickory, showing that there could be some icy slick spots, so you want to be careful. The brunt of any freezing rain and sleet is going to be right now this morning, so watch out for slick spots, especially bridges, overpasses, and sidewalks. The intensity is going to taper by lunch, but temperature's not going to really warm up today, so those roads could still stay slick. So things to keep in mind: slick roads, watch for ice, wipers on, lights on all day with showers lingering, low-hanging clouds, maybe some patchy fog in and out. Of course, roads will be most slick the farther north and west you go, where temperatures will be colder, especially around 321. So you want to just be careful there. Now, we keep saying bridges and overpasses, right? Why? Well, when you have the ground, the road kind of just plastered right on top of the ground, right? Those ground temperatures, it takes a lot more to cool them off, right? A lot longer in time and a lot colder temperatures. But with the air wrapping around the bridge and the overpass the way you see there, it doesn't take that much to cool it off. Those things can get pretty cold pretty quickly with temperatures even around 30 degrees. So that's where you get that ice to form on the bridges and overpasses first. So it's very possible, in fact likely today, that you're driving over a wet road, get to an overpass, and that overpass is icy, if that makes sense, right? So just be careful. All of this to say, those road conditions can change very quickly out there today, so you'll want to be careful. Back here Live in Hickory. Again, we've been seeing mostly rain out here this morning, watching to see if we get some of that ice accumulating because we are at 32 degrees right now. It does feel colder. I'm not sure it's because we've been out here a while or because it actually is getting colder, but of course we'll continue to monitor the icing conditions up here. For now, reporting live in Hickory, meteorologist Elisa Raffa, Fox 46. You said those few degrees really make all the difference, and we've been sitting at 32 degrees all morning in Hickory, but it really just goes to show that just that few degrees extra would get these things to be ice. I mean, right now we're still wet in Hickory. This is this chair that I've been monitoring, and this would be an elevated surface, and it's metal. It's a cold surface too. So if temperatures were cold enough, this would be icy, and right now it's just been wet. Now the rain intensities have also picked up. So again, if these temperatures were just a degree or two colder, we'd have some pretty significant icing conditions on our hands. But with this being all rain, you can see we've got ponding that's really letting up onto the grassy surfaces there. The grass is just totally soaked after the week and rounds of rain that we've had, and you've got the puddling coming up into the grass. And we've got these cute little rocking chairs that I've also been checking for ice, and they're still rocking, they're still wet. It's a little bit windy out here. But again, we're monitoring for these icing conditions, and right now, we've got things that are wet. You just want to be careful because anything that is elevated could have ice on it with these temperatures so borderline, and as you're driving, any of those roads could very quickly go from wet to icy if you're going from a plain road to an overpass. So just keep that in mind as well. Things look wet and are wet out there, but there's still some slick spots possible, so just keep that in mind. For now, reporting live in Hickory, meteorologist Elisa Raffa, Fox 46. Yeah, Nick, we've been talking about these borderline temperatures all morning, right? Where things are still mostly wet here. I keep checking a lot of these metal chairs out here, see if we're getting any icing, and not quite yet. We're still sitting at 32 degrees right now in Hickory. Now, we've been mentioning that in all of our live reports this morning, right? The borderline temperatures and the wet but not icy conditions. So I want to show you how we forecast these precipitation types and how just a small difference in temperature makes a big difference in precipitation types. So what you're looking at is you got to think of the atmosphere like a 3D box, right? So not just the temperature around your head, but the temperature going upstairs in the atmosphere. And you see rain is all warm, and then freezing rain has that tiny slither of colder air at the bottom. You can see this maybe a little bit better in this graphic that's got some of these 3D columns here. And in that first column, you could see the rain. The second column, the freezing rain. So you see how thin that cold layer is? That's the layer that you need to get that freezing rain. And even though we're sitting at 32 degrees right now, we're just not seeing it right here in Hickory this morning. Of course, as the column gets colder, that's where you get some more of that snow. So again, this is why we're dealing with a lot of wet and possibly icy conditions because of these borderline temperatures. Still 32 in Hickory with some possible slick spots, 34 in Charlotte, and all rain going from Charlotte into the south and east. So where you've got the pinks, you could have some icy conditions, especially bridges and overpasses, because those ground temperatures will be colder than the general ground temperatures. You just don't have the heat from yesterday to kind of warm you up on a bridge and overpass. That cold air wraps around it. So the brunt of the freezing rain and sleet is this morning. Watch for slick bridges, overpasses, sidewalks especially. The intensity tapers by lunchtime, but those roads could still be slick in spots because, as Nick was saying, those temperatures are not going to really warm up that much today. Again, back here in Hickory, we're kind of starting to hear the rain too. The rain has been picking up in intensity, but for now, looking at some wet surfaces here. Reporting live in Hickory, meteorologist Elisa Raffa, Fox 46.
Yeah, Elisa, thanks. Cool graphics. Kind of nice to understand where we actually, what the timing of when we get sleet and frozen rain. And we've been watching, Elisa, you sort of give us a chair update, looking for any kind of icy accumulation. Anything that you're seeing there?
My chair, right? My metal elevated surface, right? That would be game for ice accumulation. But like Brett, we're also still sitting at 32 degrees. Now, of course, it stops right in time when we need to be on live TV, right? But right before we were on live TV, heavy rain came down. And it almost made us feel grateful because that rain was coming down, so much of it, so heavy. If it was freezing, boom, ice rink right here if it was freezing on contact, because that much rain came down. You can kind of still see some of that rain falling behind me here with some of these lights in the pavilion, some of that rain again smacking against the ground. The tables and chairs here are metal, are elevated, and I keep checking. This one has a lot of ponding right now because of that heavy rain that we got, but still just wet. Still not really seeing any ice on here. Ooh, this one has a little bit of ice up here. Got some of it, just a little bit of ice on this chair. So again, temperature's been borderline this morning at 32 degrees, and you need that thin layer of cold freezing temperatures to get that rain to freeze on contact. Again, this chair does have a little bit on it, but for the most part, these sidewalks here have been mainly just wet. And again, with that rain that just came down so heavy, that's at least the good news here. Is for now, road conditions mainly wet, not icy, but be careful on the bridges and overpasses because, like Nick was saying, those likely are icy. Reporting live in Hickory, meteorologist Elisa Raffa, FOX 46.
You've been in Hickory since before 4:30 this morning. How have you seen conditions change and possibly even get worse?
Yeah, good morning. What we're really finding is now we're starting to see this icy glaze on the elevated surfaces, right? We've been talking about wet conditions and borderline temperatures all morning. We're still sitting at 32 degrees, and I think if temperatures were a degree or 2 or 3 colder, a lot of what you see that's wet behind me would very much so be ice. But what we're finding is the ground conditions are wet because, again, we're dealing with borderline temperatures, but things that are elevated and cold are icy. Here's my chair. Jason loving my chair update, but you can see that we do have some of these icicles starting to form on the chair. That's not wet anymore. That's all ice. Again, it's an elevated cold surface. Finding the same thing with this table here. You've got some ice kind of bunching together on top of the table. I don't know if you could tell. And ponding too. The rain is coming down heavy. We've been talking a lot about ice, but I don't want to neglect the fact that an inch of rain is also ponding issues, and we're already saturated from 3 million storms that we've got this week. Here's another display of some of the ice that we're starting to find, and look at how gorgeous this one looks with these little kind of icicles that are coming off of the tree here. That is where we're finding some of that icing there in the trees, but when that gets heavy, that's when you have issues with power, and we could really see that again in the northern and northeastern parts of the state. So be careful out there. Things are icing. You want to be careful on some of those bridges and overpasses. For now, reporting live in Hickory, meteorologist Elisa Raffa, FOX 46.
They know what's going on outside right now.
And we mentioned the team coverage. We've got meteorologist Elisa Raffa up in Hickory this morning. And Elisa, you don't always need the most expensive meteorological tools out there, right? You can just kind of use your eyes and look around and see if ice is accumulating, like the chair that's next to you.
My chair has been so helpful this morning, and I really feel like we've been on a journey because this morning it was just soaking wet, right? And now as temperatures are more steadily at freezing, might be a little bit colder than that, this has really begun to like ice over a little bit. A lot of these droplets that you see here are solid, whereas this morning it was a little bit more wet. Now this tree has also been looking really beautiful too with the icing. Of course, when the ice becomes too much, that's when you get the power outages when your tree hangs like this. But look at how pretty though. Some of that ice really starting to get on the trees. They're dipping and dripping off of the leaves as that ice starts to stick. And as Nick was saying, this is a heavy rain event too. I mean, we've got ponding that's laying up against the grass here. Because remember, we've been very saturated. We had multiple storms this week. So even as the light icing comes to an end, you'll have to watch out for the ponding and the flooding as we go through the rest of the afternoon. And I'm sure you can tell it's raining pretty heavy on us right now as it has been all morning. The rocking chairs out here, by the way, super cute. They have ice on there as well. We've got some of the icing on the rocking chair, but the ice is not making it any less comfortable, guys. Even on this kind of wet, dreary, icy morning, it's pretty nice out here in Hickory. Reporting live in Hickory, meteorologist Elisa Raffa, FOX 46.
Can you just stay in that chair a little longer so I can just get a video so that I can keep posting your updates on Twitter? Elisa, thank you so much. Stay warm. You guys are doing a great job. She is with Brian, one of our photographers. Woo.